to the Nice Rack podcast. I'm doing this one solo because Ryan Hurley, who normally does this with me, is a little sick. No, he doesn't have the Rona. He's just a little sick. Whatever's going around. So I figured we need to get this out on Friday, and it's been one crazy, hectic project after another here at StarNet. I'm very excited to be able to help clients and so on. Sometimes we get a lot of unexpected stuff. We get a lot of break fix things in, and we get a lot of projects and problems that other people turn their backs on or say they can't fix or whatever. So we're going to go ahead and do this. So as you can see, I'm doing this from my basement, which is my movie room, if you will. Or my daughter and I pretty much watch all of our films down here. It's not big. It's small. It's just whatever we call it, the movie room. It's just a little tiny room. We just shoot the projector up there across. Anyway, so I want to talk a little bit about edge computing today. Everybody knows about the cloud. Many people are running to the cloud. You got to get on the cloud, got to get on the cloud, got to get on the cloud. Everybody's got to get on the cloud. And there's a lot of benefits to things like in the cloud. For example, a lot of people are going to Office 365, or as it's now being changed to Microsoft 365. For Christ's sakes, Microsoft, just leave it the fuck alone. Can you? Oh, I probably should say this before we get started. If you have kids listen to this, please don't have them listen to this because there's sometimes profanity and it's a little bit of adult humor at some point. So we don't want any kids to listen to it. Or if you're easily offended by 4-letter words, then you probably don't want to watch this. Okay. We don't use it a lot, but when we do it, it happens. So anyway, so Microsoft, why the fuck do you have to change it? Leave it as Office 365. You've caused more confusions, more problems, more issues than anything. But it's the standard Microsoft practice, right? Bring everybody in. Hey, try our cloud computing. Hey, try it free. They suck you in, they get you on board. They tell you it's a silver bullet to all your problems. Then you're sucked in and you can't get out. You always can get out, but people are like, oh, I'm already neck deep. Why bother? And so, like other cloud systems, they're not typically cheap. They're typically subscription based. So the price that you're paying for them to host it usually is more than what it costs you to buy it, usually. Not always. And there are places where you want cloud. I mean, obviously. And there's nothing wrong with going to 365. But what you have to remember is that anything you do cloud, this is no magical space where there's no problems and life is perfect. It's fucking somebody else's computers. It's just somebody else's computers. You're taking your car and you're parking it in somebody else's garage. Why? Well, you don't want to paint your garage. You don't want to keep the heat on your garage. You don't want to maintain the garage if you get a hole in the roof. You don't care. You just want to take your stuff, put it elsewhere. But that also means that if there's a problem, you can't get your hands around somebody's neck to choke them. And I don't mean physically, but I mean when you run into problems, you're waiting. If you guys don't realize every day, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, they all have problems every day. You may not be affected by them. And I talk about this continuously because people come to me and say, oh, I'm going to go in the cloud. It never goes down. What? Are you fucking kidding me? Where do you live that you don't realize this? And, granted, there are people who don't do what we do. And if it's like some CEO somewhere, that's fine. But you should be educated. That's like saying, well, I always buy, Chevy because they never break down. Everybody knows here that Chevy breaks down more than Ford. Sorry, had to do that. I'm a Ford guy. What can I tell you? Anyway, so you're putting your stuff on somebody else's computer and you're hoping that everybody back there is an expert. People say, oh, it's Microsoft or Azure or Google. They're the best. They know more than anybody. Bullshit. You don't think there's as many people that make mistakes there? Engineers, how they turn hands over. I mean, come on. Let's be realistic. Do you really think the people that work at Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and other places that are cloud-based know more than you do? Maybe they do. I know they don't know more than me in some areas, and in other areas they may, but they have many problems. Why? How do I know? Because we get calls every day for it. Every day. And I tell people, before you go to the cloud, make sure you do your research. Understand what you're getting. You're putting your stuff on somebody else's computers. You're putting your stuff far away. It's not in your office. If your internet goes down, now you need redundant internet. A lot of customers tell me they think they're just going to walk down to the local Starbucks or Panera and get on the internet and they're going to work. No, it doesn't work like that. I mean, yeah, you guys can work from home. Yeah, you guys can connect and so on, but you're still traveling distance to do things. So I know a very particular client who was told by a consulting company to move to the cloud, and they just chomped at the bit and went right at it. Within 2 weeks, everybody was pissing and moaning, complaining that we can't work like this. It's too slow. Well, no shit, Sherlock. If you're trying to run executables across the internet or some SQL instances, or applications, they're not going to work. They're not going to work well. They may work, but they won't work well. You have to know what you're doing. The cloud does not mean that everything you're doing is going to be perfect there. It's a silver bullet. There's no silver bullets in this industry, ladies and gentlemen. There never are. And so you have to do what's right for you. Now, if you were to say, hey, we want to do backups, I would say, hey, back up local and then back up the cloud at least. Well, why would you back up local, Lou? Why not put it in the cloud? Okay. Well, how long do you think it takes to download 5, 10, 15, 20, 100 terabytes over your shitty internet connection, your 1 gig internet connection? Do the math. So you're going to tell all your users that while you're down or while you're recovering from the cloud, well, we got the backups, but it's going to be a couple of days to get it down. And then you got to hope that it comes down clean, that there's no interruptions, it doesn't break, that when it does come down, the data is actually working, because most people run backups and they don't test them. What? Say that again? That's right. Most people run backups and they don't test them ever. Bad practice. So, like I said, the cloud has its purposes. There's great places for it. There's things that it does serve its purpose, but you have to do research. Don't just jump to the cloud because somebody else tells you should. I said this, I think, in our last podcast or at some point, that a couple of years ago, I think it was 3 years ago or 4 years ago, I did a talk for some government. And I put a slide up. They did a poll of CIOs across the country. 80% of them went to the cloud. Why? Because somebody else did it and they were told they should. They didn't do research. They don't even look. So people think, well, I'm going to pick, Azure and so on. It's just going to be great. It could be, but it depends on your network. No two networks are the same. Yeah, you all use computers. You all have this, you all have that, you all have applications, but everything's different, right? So not everybody uses the same. I'll give you a quick example. We have a customer who was running QuickBooks. Everybody went home to work. I don't agree with that, but everybody went home to work. In their case, they shouldn't have, but they did. Then they tried to run QuickBooks from their laptops or their desktops to the office. Anybody ever try and do that? It's slow. It's not meant to work that way. Okay, you have to understand the difference between things like client server apps or working on a remote desktop session or remote controller, so things like that, and how they integrate. If your application server is in New Jersey and your SQL box is on the cloud in Azure or both, you may find that the response is not suitable. Then the more people you put on and congest into that little internet connection, the way you go. Even if you have a gig internet, think about this. If you have 50 people in your office, that's a small office. Each one gets a 1 gig connection into your switch. Then your switch goes into your firewall 1 gig. Maybe it goes 10 gig. But most likely, most of you don't have more than a gig going to the internet. Now you're taking 50 people. I'm just giving you a round. Imagine it's more, even less people, running 1 gig dedicated to their machines to a switch. And then they're all getting squeezed into a 1 gig connection. You ever hear of a word? It's called traffic. It's called congestion, things like that. That's what you get. So let's talk about edge computing and what it is. So edge computing takes a step further, because while everybody was jumping to the cloud because that's where they need to be. And by the way, we probably had more than 40+% of our customers take their shit off the cloud, which is more of a pain in the ass. Their applications, so on. Again, there's other things that we want to keep there. I'm not saying don't go to the cloud. I'm not saying throw everything in the cloud. You have to have your balance. You have to know what goes and what doesn't. And if you have questions on that, by all means, give my office a call or shoot us an email. I'll be happy to discuss it with you. You won't get charged for us to pick up the phone and talk to you about it. Okay. But let's talk about edge computing, because I just went to a conference for Scale Computing about a week or so ago in Las Vegas. It was absolutely one of the best conferences I've ever been to. Their CEO, Jeff Reddy, is not only an incredible visionary, well, him and his whole team, but Jeff came up and did some discussion. He's a credible visionary, but he also, explained things in detail. He made sense with what he said. He is passionate about what he does. He's not some CEO like the guys at Dell and Citrix. All they want to do is make money for their stockholders and so on. And that's fine. That's their job. But he's passionate. He does what he does. He's engineering based and he understands what makes sense. So they talked a lot about edge computing, because Scale is a hybrid solution. It's an all-in-one hybrid computing, HCI, which if you've used, let's say, other ones out there like Nutanix or so on, you'll see it's all along the similar idea that the compute, the storage, and the networking are all within, one box or multiple boxes, so that they're redundant. So Jeff went on and talked about this a bit, and I got to be honest with you, most conference I go to, I am fucking bored listening to people speaking. No offense to anyone, and I'm sure people get bored when I speak too. but I was bored out of my fucking mind at most of these conferences. But when Jeff spoke, it was very good. It was very interesting, and it was the point. And he went into edge computing in quite some detail. And for those of you that don't know what it is, edge computing is taking equipment and putting it on the edge of your network within your facility. So instead of taking all your stuff and shoving in some cloud somewhere else, all your compute and storage and all that stuff, you bring some of that, all of that, or part of that into the edge of your network where it's available locally and allows people in other locations to access it quicker. Well, why? There's a couple things that go on. When you stick stuff in the cloud, there's latency. You're traveling geographical distances. It's electricity. It takes time to get from point A to point B. Okay, so things that might take seconds when you bring them to edge computing, you might be able to bring them down to milliseconds, which can overcome some of the problems we see people running applications with the SQL servers out here and the application servers there, or so on. We've also got issues where, or we've also got good reason to put it, because think about what happens when a cloud gets attacked. And don't say it doesn't, because everybody's seen it. They've all been attacked. And if you don't think those guys are under constant attack and that their firewall or pair of firewalls they have is going to stop people all the time, you're out of your fucking mind, because most people don't break in through the firewall. Most people are breaking in through social engineering. They're getting someone inside, and whether it's money or they've tricked them or something else, they're getting in from the inside. Okay, so let's just kind of throw that on the table and stop pretending like firewalls are going to stop everything, because everybody should know at this point that it is a cop at your door, but it doesn't mean somebody can't sneak around the back. Okay, so be aware of that. So we bring edge computing in for security reasons, because one of the global leaders gets attacked. Right, we've seen it. We've seen it happen at Azure quite a bit, where they go down. It takes everything down, not just your stuff, but every other company that's hosting on there. It goes down. When you put stuff in your edge computing, it's your stuff to protect. Sure, your stuff can get attacked as well, but your stuff is less exposed if it's done properly, because you're not sharing space with 50 million other companies, right? Microsoft 365, there's billions of companies on that, I'm sure, at this point. They get attacked, think how many people are going down. They go down in regions. Oh, the East Coast is down. Oh, the Southwest is down. And you may not see it, may not affect you. We had customers in South Jersey couldn't manage their stuff because they were down, but North Jersey was okay. But you're doing things where you're bringing that stuff into the edge, so you have faster data response for local users. You don't have to worry about a global attack on somebody's system taking your stuff down. I mean, the reality here is that you need to find the balance of what you're doing, right? By moving that stuff to the edge, you're bringing less congestion. Well, why? Because I don't have to travel over my internet link for everyone to get out to the data. The data's here, right? It's at the edge, so I can hit it locally from the majority of my users, maybe, and some remote users come in like this, as opposed to everybody has to travel to the cloud. You can't control the traffic and the bandwidth between you over the public internet. You can put up WANs with site to site, and we do this all the time. You can have as much bandwidth as you want, but you cannot control the amount of bandwidth between you at point A and your destination in the cloud at point B. Because if somebody in the middle is congested, it'll take you down. Oh, Lou, that doesn't happen. Bullshit. Happens all the time. I had a customer who spent 2 weeks troubleshooting to find out that there was an ISP in the middle, somewhere outside of Los Angeles, that was causing the delay. And it took 2 weeks of finding one of those guys to listen, because, oh, it's not us, it's not us, it's not us, and getting the right people. It's not easy to do, and it's expensive to troubleshoot, trust me. So you cannot control that bandwidth. So by giving yourself some of the stuff on the edge, you can control what you have coming in. You can set whatever bandwidth you want that you're willing to pay for and give that access to people. Okay. Again, doesn't mean you shouldn't go to cloud. It doesn't mean you should go all to edge. It doesn't mean you shouldn't have any in-house. It is a design consideration for the types of applications you're using, what you're doing, and what kind of users, what your users are actually looking for. And what they need to do. I mean, that's the most important thing. You don't just go and say, oh, I'm going to cloud. Most people that we've seen go to cloud, oh, I'm just going to cloud because I need to go to cloud. Then they go like, it's not that great. I'm paying a fortune. Now I'm locked in. I can't come back. But do your research. Do you just go out and buy a car because it's 4 wheels and a steering wheel? Or do you go out and buy a car that you like? Maybe you like the style, maybe you like the gas efficiency, maybe you like the room in the car. Maybe you need a truck because you transport things. Maybe you just need a little tiny car because it's just you by yourself. I mean, all these different things you have to consider, right? You don't go out and buy a Ford Expedition if you're the only person driving it. Okay. All right. So let's talk about increasing security and scalability when we're using edge networks. So we're able to give ourselves control over the environment, which means we have the ability to get our hands around the equipment and choke its neck if we need to, right? Now, again, you have to remember that some of these costs, they will change because when you're doing cloud-based, it's subscription typically. When you're putting stuff in-house, it's usually your CapEx and your OpEx, right? What it costs to get the equipment and what it costs to run it. So you have to do all these, you have to check, you have to do some research. So what I would tell people this, because I don't want to make this an extremely long podcast, it's going pretty far and try and keep them under 15 minutes. But if you're going straight to cloud, only to go to cloud because everybody else is doing it, don't be a dumbass. Take a look at what you're trying to accomplish. If you don't understand what it is that you need to do or how it really works, then talk to somebody who does. Talk to us, talk to somebody else, wherever you need to. But do educated decisions. Consider edge computing when it makes sense for you and your network. Some of those might be, most of the users are in Maryland, and I've got, 5 remote sites of 4 people each, okay, or 30 people each, whatever it is. And you can decide if you want to use the internet with VPNs. You can decide if you want to use, point-to-point circuits or some kind of SD-WAN or something like that. But remember also, when you stick everything in the cloud and you don't have redundant internet and shit goes down, you're out. Somebody backhoes a piece of fiber, you're out. Don't say it doesn't happen. It happens. Last year, we had a customer, his whole call center went down. Why? Because it flooded he's in Long Island. It flooded in New York City. They had water into the subway. Whatever it did, it took down wires, cables, whatever, fiber, I don't know, took it down. And he's asking us, what do we do? I said, there's nothing you can do. Nothing you can do. You have no redundant internet. You need to have redundant. It's incredibly important to understand this, especially if you're relying on the outside. If you go into an office, all your servers inside, you don't have to worry about, you only use the internet for sending email and stuff, okay, then don't worry about it. But if your servers live elsewhere and you're here and they're there and the bridge breaks or the road gets blown up between you, how are you going to get your car from point A to point B? You have to think about it. So edge computing can offer you greater security, greater scalability. It can offer you the ability for faster delivery, less or no congestion. Okay, so there's lots of benefits to it, and I'm sure there's more. I'm just kind of trying to go through this, but you might actually have a smarter configuration by actually using edge computing. And again, this is not to tell you can't do this, can't do that. This is dumb. That's not. It's not that at all. You just have to think. You have to look at what you're trying to accomplish. Don't just go to the cloud because you just want to go to the cloud. Okay, typically the cloud is more expensive than it is to host the stuff inside. I can tell you that. Office 365, the cost for most people once you get over 15 users for the year gets more expensive than having Exchange server in-house. Now, as far as the actual CapEx, but as far as the operations, the backups and so on, is it? It all depends. It all depends. We have a lot of people who have not gone to cloud because the cost is so prohibitive. And they don't want to be able to, they don't want to call and get an ambassador on the phone. It's nothing more than a, part-time employee or employee that's part trained. Say, oh, did you reboot your computer? That kind of shit. We don't need that stuff. Anyway, think about it. Edge computing, do a little research. If you have questions, give us a call, 732-919-3446. I'll be happy to explain to you in more detail. Or give us an email, info@starnetsolutions.com. You can also send it to our support team at starsupport@starnetsolutions.com. We're happy to answer some questions for you. All right, take care. Hope everybody's having a really, really, really great weekend. I'm off to go see a client in another state, so I got to go get on a plane. But thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.